Okay, Kuf Lamed Vav Gilui Kavod Hashem Bebriya V'Kabbalat Pnei Shechina, and 163 in English. Ata Nashuv V'Nispone. Now we're going to understand Hevdel Shven Kedushas Leil Shabbos Kedushas Yom HaShabbos. The difference between the evening of Shabbos and the day of Shabbos. Shabbos Kodesh B'Ovin Klali Yazman Shavo Nitin Lirot Et Mitziut Hashem Yisparach. Shabbos Kodesh is the time we see the reality of Hashem. Humara Al Chidush Olam. You want to encounter God? You can find God most easily on Shabbos. Leil Shabbos Nikra Chakal Tapuchin Kadishin, and we cited last week the Aramaic expressions that emerged from those piyutim. If you look at the bencher, you'll have an Aramaic piyut for each of the meals. Special song sound for each meal. The one we know most famously, which is Shal Shudas. B'nei Hechala, everybody used to sing that in the shtibels, right? B'nei Hechala. Anyway, so herring gefilte fish Jews would sing that song. It used to be a Shal Shudas song. It's before Mizmor David. People don't do Mizmor David, only start Mizmor David nowadays, but they used to start with B'nei Hechala. Yeah. Squared. So, is that added? Yeah, no, they're really quite beautiful. And then there's one for Friday night that I used to sing, which is Azamer Bishvachin, and there's one for Shabbos Day also. So in the one for Friday night, the expression appears Chakal Tapuchim Kadishin, the apple orchard, the holy apple orchard. Okay. So Sadeh Shel Tapuchim Kedoshim, a field filled with holy apples. When you see the fruits are growing like apples, Yodim Behechach Shemishu Zarakan. What do you know right away when you see an apple orchard? Someone planted them. It's not like a random tree that's growing in the wild. A whole row of trees, it must have been that was planted. If you see that they're holy apples, then it must have been that they were planted with that intention. So Belel Shabbos, Omrim in the evening of Shabbos we say, and God completed the heavens and the earth, and all of the Tzva'am, right? All of the legions, all of the hosts, stars, the celestial bodies, the angels, the creations in this world. From the element that he rested in the world, Nilmad sheyesh l'olam mechadash, Akarchach sheyesh Elokim b'Yisrael. So he's suggesting that what we learn when we see that God has stopped temporarily is that there was a creator. In other words, the testimony on the creation is that the work is stopped. Right? You see all of a sudden there's something's not happening, but now you kind of look and reflect on what was created. That's the meaning behind this Kabbalistic piyut called Azamer Bishvachin, the apple orchard. That's what we're supposed to be thinking about. Shabbos Mavoker Zu Kvar Bechinas Shabbos Matan Torah. But by the morning comes around, we're not thinking about reflecting on God's creation. What are we thinking about at that point? The gift of the Torah. So Matzav Shon Chaluk. It's a totally different mentality. Sham Kiviyachol Masigim Es Hashem Yisparach Be'atzmo. There we understand. We approach God Kiviyachol. Kiviyachol means as if we have an encounter with God, not by looking at his creation, not by looking back and saying, wow, look at the orchard you planted, but rather, it's the revelation that we experience when we know someone created the field, but rather the meal that is ancient and holy. I don't know how they translate the Aramaic. Tika means ancient. Kaddish. Kabbalas Penei Hashchina, Mamash, Uchaosa Bechina Shoriyas HaKadosh Baruch Hu Derech. It is the acceptance of the face of the Shechina, and it's as if you have seen God through His Torah. So, okay, the encounter that now we're going to probably break this down a little more, but Friday night we look back on the creation. We say, this was God's work. Shabbos day we say that Kiviyachol, this is God. We see Hashem. Hevdel ben Leil Shabbos or Shabbos Boker, Mo Hevdel ben Echad Sheroa Tmuno Ma Umevin Shal Karchach Mishu Tzayer Ota. Someone who sees a painting says, someone must have painted this painting. Right? That's Goya, that's whoever it is, right? It wasn't created by a cat that was jumped into a can of paint or something and sprinkled with its tail and made a design. Or the notion that if you put a bunch of monkeys in front of a keyboard, right, eventually they'll type something. It's not nonsense, right? Just keep doing that there. Although AI is giving us a run for the money now in terms of the thinking that this is possible. But again, that was created by think, right? Human being created a program that can do that. It can draw upon other human knowledge. Or you see the artist. So that's the difference between Friday night and Shabbos day. Friday night is a reflection on God's deeds, and Shabbos day is a reflection on God. Leil Shabbos roa nesabriya mena lomdim al b'sis haboreya al Shabbos boker roa miskadosh baruch hu b'atzmo shiroa mosel kivyachol derech mara. We're seeing God as if it's like a direct reflection of Hashem, a vision of Hashem. Now let's go to the tefillos. Remember, if you look at the Friday night prayer and the Shabbos day prayer and the Shabbos afternoon prayer, there's a different formulation in each one. So Friday night we say Ata Kidashta, you have sanctified. Why do we say that? Yom Shabbos we say Yismach Moshe, God rejoices, Moshe rejoices in the Torah. Let's explain the following parable. There's a great king, and now he wants to marry a young woman, which kings tend to say, okay, why not? We have to perpetuate my lineage forever, so I'll just continue it until I'm 90 years old, have children. I think it was an actor just had a baby. Robert De Niro just had a baby. Yeah. Robert De Niro's in his it's got to be late 70s. Yeah. Right. Anyway, so let's say there's a 79. Yeah, that kid's gonna have a good. Right. Anyway. I don't know. I didn't ask him, but yeah, he needs more actors in the world. Figures. But at least there's a chance to have a relationship with the child. The guy is 80 years old. He's not going to have a kasher with the kid. The wedding's going to be beautiful. It'll be the kala is going to walk down, the kala's mother and the kala's father, and then the respirator, and all going to walk down the aisle. Beautiful, beautiful procession. So anyway, it's one way to live forever, right? So there's a king, and he marries a young maiden. Okay, I'm sure if he has the pick of the litter, right? Osanara be'oda asuka ba'chanat likrot chatana. She's getting ready for the chasana. Oches ba pachad nor. She's suddenly afraid. Who's this old man? Now he shama al gedulaso shemelach. She hears about the greatness of the king. Al gvurasa va'atzma mufla shelo. Kol chamesh dakot he mit alefet. Every 5 minutes she is fainting. I'm sure that's not the only reason, right? Kol zeh. She goes to the chuppah, be'osa rega, sheroa kalas, ziv panav shel chosna. She roas, oh wow, married to the king. We're dropping the cynicism here. We're trying to play on the imagery here. This is a very important person, right? And she feels good about that. Osa meir lo panim mechayech. She smiles. Simcha govert apachad v'hi nir ga. She relaxes. She's calm. She takes a Xanax. So we have here the fright, and the fright is subdued through a simcha, through a sudden joy that she experiences at the chuppah. Now, what's the reason that we talk about that's Shira's Erev Shabbos is the one we all envision for ourselves. Where's the rat? I was like, oh yeah, I did it. Everything's done. So we are the Kala. Hashem is the ancient king. He's the holy king, right? So we are afraid. Shematan Torah Kol Dibur v'Dibur Yotzav Hikadosh Baruch Hu Chazu Yisrael Lacharan Shnei Masar Mil. We're going to come to Matan Torah. What happened every time Hashem uttered a dibra, a commandment? We backed up 12 miles, 12 mil. We were terrified. We had to ask Moshe to intercede and be the interpreter, the Neturgaman, because it was too much for us to hear God's voice. And the angel would push us. We ran away from the fear of God. When we came to the moment of Kabbalah Pnei Shechina, receiving the Shechina, Simchasam Goveret Ala Pachad Hanora. The joy of receiving the Shechina overcame the fear, the anxiety that we had in that moment, right? Yeah. Right. That's part of the natural relationship with God. He's much greater than us and powerful, and it's frightening, and it's an encounter with truth, and we don't know we're ready for it. And so it's not until we get to the chuppah that we experience the joy, right? Anyway, so the Leil Shabbos and Nachna Mitrach Sim Beosak Be'ata Kiddush. You sanctify Kedusha. Holiness is filled with awe. It's pachad. It's a fear. We have fear. We have awe. We arrive to Shabbos in the morning, Shabbos Boker. There, Kfar Kabbalas Pnei Shechina. We receive the face of the countenance of the divine presence. Yachid mapachad yeshana yeshna gam simcha. And with the pachad, there's also joy. Yismach Moshe Manas Toko. So now you know when you look at the Siddur on Shabbos. Friday night avoda, which is it's the only time Shabbos we keep switching the words. Start with a sense of awe, we move into joy, into Yismach Moshe. And now, and eventually we're going to get to Mincha, which is the third step, but we're not there yet. Okay. Leil Shabbos, Yira Shabbos, Boker Ahav. Now we get to the evening of Shabbos, which is Yira, awe. Shabbos morning Ahava. So what are those two dynamics, the two parts of relationship with Hashem? You have to fear Hashem, you have to love Hashem. They're very lofty matters. There's a practical element. Leil Shabbos, Ikra Avoda, Al Yisod Samuna. On the night of Shabbos, the main work that we have is faith. Laila, Lo Roim, Tzrichem Emuna. At night, we don't see, right? And therefore, we need faith to get us by, because you don't see God. That's the emunas chabalelos. Tov lahodus l'Shem l'zamar Shem chalayon. Hagi baboker chastecha v'emunas chabalelos. Your faith at night, our faith, lichoretz, our faith, is people interpret it as God's faith. That what pulls us through the night is that God has faith in us, because emunas is we're talking to Hashem. But some will interpret this as our faith. We have to have faith at night, because the only way you can make it through if it's pitch black. Now, I lost my place. Okay, Tosim is a call. Ach lo roim habetz. We don't see it. Shabbos Boker is man shel simcha. Yisma Moshe manos chalko. Avoda shel atavach hartanu mikolamim. You chose us. Shel kabbalas pnei Shechina. Ashrenu matov volcano. Praiseworthy. How great is our portion. Zu hargasha shel tzarich lagish Shabbos Boker. Simcha shel kabbalas pnei Shechina. The joy of having established relations with Hashem. Yes, of course we receive God on Friday night. Is the morning. It's a relationship that we have more fear, more gevura, more might, more yira, awe on Friday night, and more ahava, love on Shabbos day. You know, you have a mitzvah, two mitzvahs. They are, the Rambam calls mitzvahs tmidios, constant mitzvahs we have to love Hashem and to fear Hashem. Some of the Mamani mitzvahs include them as among the 613, and the Ramban will not, because they are overarching mitzvahs, and therefore they're always incumbent upon us. They're not counted towards the 613. How various Rishonim will calculate the 613 is always an interesting subject. How the Smag does it, the Sefer Mitzvahs Gadol, how the Rambam does, the Ramban, and the Chinuch, everyone lists the mitzvahs in different ways. And by the way, it's also an interesting study is people will list the mitzvahs based on different things. The Rambam will split between positive commandments and negative commandments. The Chinuch will split based on parsha. Every parsha has different mitzvahs, right? That's an interesting way to learn mitzvos. And then I think it's the smag, I believe. It's all based on how body parts that are used for observance of each mitzvah, right? That's how he organizes the various mitzvahs. So, and not only do they have different organization of mitzvahs, the count of what counts as among the 613, what doesn't, is also a matter of a dispute. Because the Gemara has a hint at how we get to 613, but it doesn't say what the 613 are. So everybody's sort of arguing, what are these? So one of the fundamental disputes is Ahava and Yira. Is loving and fearing God, is that a mitzvah? Are those mitzvos? Or are those just overarching required prerequisites for being a Jew? You have to love and fear God, but those aren't mitzvos. Those are you can't get anywhere. You can't have a mezuzah if you don't love and fear God. It doesn't mean take root. Okay. Right. So that's also interesting. So that's I may go into that on the opening shir before Mariv on Shavuos. We talk about the Ten Commandments. That's going to be my first talk. Will be on that. The Bahag there, and there's the Kuzari on whether Anochi Hashem is a mitzvah or not, and what it was. I mean, okay. Now, so Leil Shabbos is the time of avoda. It's the time that we are engaged in work. Hayayin shel kiddush roteach b'toch atzamos. The wine of Kiddush is still boiling in the bones. I'm not sure what that means. It's just still setting. The alcohol is still getting into us at that point, right? It's the first moment. We're already in the temple. We received the Shekhinah, and there's ha'arat panim, there's a countenance, and there's a dveikus, kezu kedusha, uchrachim naheg acheret. Nisecha lo mitgalgel b'rechovot. Your miracles are not rolling around in the streets anymore. We're in the I think miracle Nisecha is. So I don't know how they translate. But the point is, we are in the palace. Nisecha nasecha lo mitgalgel b'rechovot. Your banner. Yeah. Okay. Whenever he gets Kabbalistic, like, I'm not translating this. The American public doesn't deserve this part of the book. I don't know what they thought. Okay, well, that's why it's good to do this. Dugma masi l'kach. We have a practical example. Yishnam shnei sugi b'nei adam. We have two types of people. Shen medabrim lashon hara. That don't speak lashon hara. You have this part about two people who don't speak lashon hara. Okay, who are they? Yesh adam she'eno medaber lashon hara ki hu omer hu lomed es sefer Chavetz Chaim model godol avon chumraton shelav. The person studied the laws of Chavetz Chaim in the book of lashon hara and knows that this is lashon hara. Ach yesh amarashim shalabi shekimat lo patchu pitchu et sefer Chavetz Chaim. They never opened the book. Hoping ena medaber lashon hara, they still don't speak lashon hara. Zil pashim me'orer behem shat nefesh. They don't. How can you ever speak negative about another person? It's their kishkas. They know that this is wrong, right? You ever have like halachically reprehensible activity and morally reprehensible activity? And we were talking about that before we started, right? When we had this idea of if I take a drug and I take it away from someone else, they don't have the ability to take it. It may not be halachically yasser, but maybe it's morally problematic, right? So there are two types of people who refrain from lashon hara. Someone who learned the halacha and says it's asur to study lashon hara, and someone who knows study to learn. Let's just speak lashon hara. And then there are people who never studied the laws of lashon hara, but they know you don't talk negative about another person, right? Tzalam Elokim, that person's an image of God. Like, how can I talk bad about another person? So those are the two categories of people who stay away. By the way, you'll find that the people who are morally inclined, right, they don't respond well to people who reduce everything to halacha. I remember when Nefesh B'Nefesh got started, and they were doing this campaign, interviewing people why they made Aliyah. And there was a friend of mine, a chavrusa of mine, who made Aliyah, and they said, why this person? Oh, join the army to be part of the Jewish faith, part of Jewish history. I love the land. Everyone had a different reason. This person wrote, because it's a mitzvah. No, he was right. That's like the correct reason. But I remember thinking, like, for some reason, for many people, it's such a turnoff. Like, that's the reason, because it's a mitzvah, not because like we waited 2,000 years or because people were, been murdered every generation. They didn't have a homeland and we've returned to our place. It's a mitzvah. It's like Hine Muchan Mazun to do a mitzvah. It's miserable. I'll do it anyway because God says to do it. Right? Like there's something about that doesn't resonate with other people. And some people are very mitzvah people. That's what we do. We do mitzvahs, right? Like you make a bracha, you put on tefillin, you light candles, do halakas neiros, and you make aliyah, right? You don't talk lashon hara. Those are mitzvahs. We don't do. I don't murder. Why don't I murder? Because God says not to murder. It's the only thing stopping me, right? Like that's true, right? No, so 100%, 100%, right, right. It reminds me of there was an example once given to me by Rabbi Boca telling this, Rabbi Goldberg, that he was telling someone that he has to, psychologist, someone said that this guy has to have more fun with his kids. So like he takes his BlackBerry and goes, 3 p.m., have fun. Fun, program fun. We will now have fun. Like, what is fun? I don't know. Fun is natural. It's not, there's no playbook for having fun. And part of the experience of Judaism is the Yismach Moshe. It's not about like the halachic technicality. We will now pick up the cup of wine, we'll hold it on the bottom, you recite the Kiddush, right? You shall bless the children, sing a Shetayel. It's mechanical and almost, distant. It's a religion of Pachad, a religion of Yira. What's a religion of Av, of Yismach Moshe? Something different about it. It's alive. It's a living Torah. So it's true there are different personalities, but we want to get to a place where we can relate to God from a place of love, right? Not just relate to God from a place of fear. Oh yeah, it is. It's lishma, but it's not the highest level because Ahavas Hashem is higher than Yiras Hashem, for sure. Now, by the way, there are people who skip the step of Yiras Hashem also. And that's a separate problem. There are people, you can artificially induce spirituality through alcohol, through dancing and song. And it's a good way to get in, but it doesn't last unless you actually also work on the Yira, on the halacha and the technicality. So you can bypass Yira, and then you're a little bit empty. People do that all the time. They have this experience in Shana Aleph, and they're inspired, and they get back to the real world. Wait a minute, I gotta balance a checkbook, and I gotta worry about minyan every day, and it's not so simple, right? And they realize that you didn't work on the difficult part. Rav Kook talks about this in Tshuva. Kook describes Tshuva as a multi-stage process, but the initial stage is the landscape is dark, and then there's a flash of lightning, and you see, wow, look at that, look at this beautiful cityscape. And then it gets dark again, and now your job in Tshuva is to try to recreate that world that was lit for a moment of inspiration. Kabbalah Satorah is like that. We receive the Torah, we're inspired. But then, anyone who goes through a tshuva process, I think something turned them on to Yiddish. And every day it's more slow. It's not the simcha of Yismach Moshe. So there's two processes, and I think that ultimately Ahavas Hashem is a higher level, and for most people you learn the halachos, you learn how to put on tzitzis every day, you learn how to say your brachos, you learn how to dress and how to talk and all those things, and eventually you have Ahavas Hashem, the high Yismach Moshe. But I do think that there are people who are coming from the other place. They're encountering God first, the Ahavas Hashem, and then they have to work through the Yira. There are people like that as well. Okay, but Shabbos goes in the other direction. Midas erech hapayim umidas hadin. Now we're going to stand a little bit of the second meal. Shabbos Boker Shi Nikras Atika Kadisha, the ancient holiness. Now we're going to get to Shal Shudas, which is called Zeir Anpin. What is Zeir Anpin? The illumination of the face, I think. Zeir Anpin. So Atika Kadisha is a nickname for God. It's Kino L'Shem Yisparach. Finamar pasuk in Daniel, Vatik Yomin Yativ Lefushe Ketelech Chiver. And the Ancient One of Days will sit girded like white snow. I assume Teleg is Sheleg. It's Aramaic. So in Aramaic, you can change certain letters over So teleg is sheleg. Chiver is white. Okay. Medubar sham al yud gimel midot shorachamim. And there we're talking about the 13 midos of Hashem. Midot nikrod levush. Mida is a levush. It's something girds Hashem, and it's a disguise in this world for God's attributes. You want to see someone, you have to see how are they dressed. They tell you right away something about that person. Person's in all leather and has tattoos and big gruffy beard and is on a motorcycle. You assume something about them. Right? Person is wearing my perm costumes, ballerina dress, tutu, and then special shoes and this, and they're doing they're fluttering across the floor. Right? You understand this is someone who's dancing arena. Someone is wearing a uniform. Has a badge and a gun. This is a police officer of some form, right? Everybody has a lavush that we know a little bit about them, and we make assumptions the moment we encounter that person. Often bashut, adam is labish kamo Yehudi hu Yehudi. A person is dressed in a Jewish dress, Jewish garb. Adam is labish kamo goy hu goy. Nimsa shalavush mevated midot hapnimiyot shel adam. Lavush does tell you a little bit about who they are on the inside. Now, it's a little bit hard to say today because you have to understand that Jewish dress is always, yes, outside of modesty, which is the modest dress can come in many forms. You could dress like a biker and be modest. So we're not talking about outside of modesty. It's hard to codify Jewish way because that changes every generation. And I'm of the opinion that as long as you're dressed in a way that's normal and fully clothed, and ultimately that's a Jewish garb. That's my opinion. But some people will feel that no, you have to uniform. Uniform is take something that was being worn by nobility 150 years ago and everybody wears it. That's Jewish garb. So everybody has different definitions of garb, right? Like you have to wear a Borsalino, right? The Italian hats. I was once in Italy, by the way. I was in Rome, and I went to the main Borsalino store there. It's a little hole-in-the-wall shop, right? And very expensive. Two things I learned there. Number one is you buy like fine Italian leather. Everyone there has small feet because I'm like, what size are you? I said 12. I'm like, what are you, a basketball player? What's wrong with? I'm like, what do you have? Well, the biggest we got in the back room, like Glow Duster, it's a size 9. What? Does everybody chop the front of their feet off in this country? So everybody has different. So that's number one thing I learned about about Italy. Number two is when I went to the Borsalino store to see like the headquarters, all the hats are like weird, like trendy hats. I said, you guys have done more for the Jewish world than almost any other institution in Italy, right? Certainly the Vatican. So Borsalino has clothed many, many Jews, but they don't carry any of those hats there. They make those in some line elsewhere. But the Borsalino ones they have there are like cool. Yeah, the market there's like the cool feather and the cool style and different, yeah. They are pimp hats, right? That's what we're saying. Right. But what makes it a Jewish outfit? That's my question for you. What makes something a Jewish garment? Right, and you have more variety. But there's more variety for women's clothing in the frum world than there is for the men's clothing. It happens to be the men in the yeshiva world are all wearing the same exact. They're all wearing dark suits, white shirts, and the variety is expressed through the tie, the belt buckle, the shoes, and the glasses. So you have cool glasses. That's where you show the individuality of your personality. That's where it emerges. Oh, Rabbi Weider's share. Yeah. Well, he was talking about not doing something just because it is being done outside. So yeah, honestly, it's hard to know the chicken and egg. I asked him about this, and I don't know the answer, but that is that you go to the store, you see something catches your eye, you think it looks nice, it's big kavadik, you think you'll look nice, and it's a nice thing to wear, right? So at that point, is that chukas akum? Probably not. But if you're doing it because everybody now is wearing this color this year, that's chukas akum at that point. But it's hard to know because everything you're going to find in the store is being determined in some fashion show in Paris, and then it makes its way to your store in the local Neiman Marcus, whatever stores, I don't know, it's a fancy store, Macy's, whatever, and then you wear it because someone determined that that's in style. Now, am I buying it because I need a suit? Am I buying it because I need that suit? I don't know. I can't find the wide pant suits anymore. Now they're all like European type smoker suits, right? Everyone has to look like a European now because that's the style. So we're all uncomfortable and we all have back pain because the suits are all being designed by.
Yeah.
Well, you'll have an easier time in that store finding longer skirts and that kind of thing. Right. Correct me if I'm wrong, there was a time that women's clothing had to be sort of fixed and tailored. When you find something you like, you have to then fix it afterwards, right? No, is that? No? Okay. Maybe for weddings.
No. My mother did always. Always would buy something and then take it to her things. Lots of things. I don't realize because
Yeah. Right. I had a great grandfather who was a tailor. He had like an accountant. Macy's hired him to make some suits back in the day. And no, it's New York. No. It's long before I was born. But he was this is a story that was passed down throughout the generation. So he was taken out to a fancy meal in order to see if he would take this account. So the Macy's are a different department store, and they were feeding him. They had like Chinese food. I guess that was like a delicacy, and the whole time he's shoving napkins and Chinese food in his pockets because he's not eating it. And then he comes back on the subway and comes back home, and he was a young tailor. He was like early 20s. His mother said, "What's this? He forgot about everything, the stuff that he was shoving in his pockets." Right? Yeah, it was a beautiful like three-piece that he made himself. My father had when he was a little baby, something like that he made for him. Anyway, okay. So the point is that at Shal Shudas, we get to this new level of Atik Yomin, Levushik, so that Shabbos day, Peleg Chivar, the ancient one sitting Levush, surrounded in clothing. And when you want to know who a person is, you look at their clothing. Hashem also has clothing. The way God is recognized is through his levush. What is that? That's his midos. Midos. You see erech apayim in the world. You see someone who's unusually patient. And what do? Tag it on Instagram. You send your friends. Right? You write the word this. That's evidently how you point out good midos to others. And Zeir Anpin. What's Zeir Anpin? Katsarapin. Katsaraf. Zeir Anpin actually means short. There's no anger, right? So hefech mida nikrat katsarapim. The opposite of erech apayim, of patient, forbearing, right? Is zeir anpin, means impetuous, quick to be angry, short-tempered. So midat erech apayim is the yugam midat rachamim nikrot gam midat haketer. The greatest midah of having patience is keter. It's the highest crown. Yanam rachamim matzum. It's great mercy is someone who, I'll give you another chance. But inyan midah zuhi shebetzim hakadosh baruch hu mevater al shum davar. What does it mean that God has zeir anpin? It means that God does not forgive anything. Shu marich umarich apo, mamtina mitzap alad machias tshuva. So, what does it mean, lo mavater shum davar? It means he doesn't give up on anything. He waits and waits until a person does tshuva. So I'm a little confused here. Mevater means to say, I'll be mevater, right? God will not be mevater or anything. The highest level of mercy is that you don't give up on anything or anyone. I'm going to wait for you forever. I know that you'll take the long path, but you'll eventually make it back. Mm-hmm. And that God waiting for us to do that eventual tshuva is part of it. Elu rachim in sofim, the most endless form of mercy, right? Erech apayim, long, the long game. Erech is echad, apayim is two more, sachakol shalosh. Shalosh is par chazaka adding self, means there's a chazaka, it's not ending. That's Sudas HaBoker, Susodatika Kadisha, Shabbos Kodesh Tzarayim Magian. So, okay, so he's giving us some Kabbalistic ideas here that we have to sort of digest and think about. But that is that the theme we think about in daytime is that God is mitlabesh in his midot. God is clothed in the midah of endless patience, and that God waits for us forever. Shabbos afternoon, we get to Shal Shudas, is the Sudasa de Zeir Anpin. Then we move to Zeir Anpin. What's Zeir Anpin? Yeshus, but Amadubas Sudashishis, Yordan with Peta Madrigas Zeir Anpin. Sudashishis, he sees Shalayom, Vim Ken Lichora Haisa Tzrich Liot Ba Aliyah Biachas Sudus Boker. Has to be better than the morning, but we went from endless patience to impetuousness and anger, right? How do we make that shift all of a sudden from going from God who is going to wait for us forever to God is just basically in an instant expects us to be perfect? Bir Inyan Nirakach. Hamidah Shabbos Boker Midas Erchapayim Zed Rachmatzum, endless patience, endless mercy. But if a Kadosh Baruch Hu is manhiyat olamo rak midas erchapayim, if all he has is patience, the world will be destroyed. Because then you have to wait for everyone to stop killing, to stop cheating, to stop stealing. And in the end of the day, the world is going to be nechrav. But after thousands of years, the Rishayim ne'enashim. When God waits and waits and waits, the evil will destroy the world. Right? Your patience wears thin unless or the world is gone. Right? Chaos. For this reason, there's the midas hadin. Midas zeir, to make sure that, so there's midas hadin, midas ahava, and to make sure that people choose the right thing, you have zeir. Givechu katsar, short temper. Tashnei anafim shezeh apayim. Kadosh Baruch Hu rak katsar apayim. If all Hashem was patient, all Hashem did was patient, but be patient with us, olam nechav, the world will be destroyed. On the other hand, if God was marech avyotimida, if he was too patient, then the world would also be destroyed. Okay. Sorry, if he was angrier all the time, the world would be destroyed. If all he did was give us din, the moment we sin, he strikes us down with lightning, destruction. If all that God did was wait and wait and wait, the world would be destroyed by our own actions. So therefore, there's balance. That Kadosh Baruch Hu has made me'ein mizug, mitzad echad katsar af mitzad hasheni marich, short-tempered and long-tempered. Marich hapeh gabe delay. Zeu hamizug shel rachamim adin, the mix of rachamim and din, and that's where you get to the hanhagat olam. That's where the world begins to function. So by Shal Shudas, time comes around, God has balanced off the endless waiting game and patience with a little bit of short expectation of need you to act. So the extreme, of course, is the moment we sin is judgment. That can't be. The extreme on the other end is they're going to come home eventually. The children will come back, come around the long path, but eventually they'll be home. And if we wait too long, eventually the world is destroyed also. So there has to be a balance, and that's where we get to Zeiran. Right. So we're going to have to see where this goes from there.